Hey, Heiner, I see you. Okay, there you go. It looks like you're unable to unmute.
Not unable. I was unwilling, but now I'm willing.
Okay, it looked like you were trying to press buttons. That's why I was mistaken.
I have been pressing too many buttons already.
All right. So, do you recall any highlights from yesterday?
Just a good session. And you asked a few things, and it was about my work. And I promised that I will send it. And if I have the time besides on my other machine, I try to send you all what I meant with signs and not just symbols, and what this axiomatic and general formal ontology and all these other schools have to put together to come to solutions we are going to discuss in Cyprus end of June.
Okay, Heiner.
You
How
like
do
my
we?
hat? It's a Stanton.
It's a fine hat. It's a beautiful hat.
Good.
Uh, should I go get my hat? Okay,
I
I'll
don't
have to
think
go
it's
get my
so
hat.
important. More important is who did you invite to join us?
Okay. I didn't invite anyone other than just put the session on. Although Kayla has an update on the possible appearance of Jaswinder's daughter.
Oh yes,
Uh,
I remember now.
she said that she's going to try to come next Sunday, not today.
Okay.
And we're going to keep it small. And if she's interested, then we'll set up, you know, possibly a later date. But we're not making this widely known yet. So why the hat today, Heiner?
I just got it as a present.
Oh, okay.
And I just came from a nature learning path, and I'm here in the countryside, 1.5 hours north of Berlin, in the woods, in the under the trees, at a lake. And I'm staying here with a friend. His name is Eike, since long. And we went to his warehouse to search for something, like a steering wheel for an old Saab automobile. And we found it, and I found the hat, and it's fitting. And it's rigid, and it holds on my head, so it's not so easily that a wind can blow it away. It's done with canine hair, Kaninchen, rabbit, and it's a fine quality. But I can take it off, no problem.
No, looks fine. Hey, before we do check-ins, since you do travel a lot, Heiner, do you ever spend any time in Umbria or Tuscany, Italy?
I was there. Laszlo lives there. And my favorite town there is Urbino, this
Oh,
old
no.
historic university town. Very, very historic and very, very gorgeous, beautiful.
Glad I asked, because I've been looking in Umbria, Puglia, and Tuscany. Obino?
Obino.
How do you spell it?
I write it in the chat.
Okay. All right. Anyone else like to check in?
Guten Tag.
Guten Morgen.
Ja, guten Tag.
Guten Abend.
Not yet.
Ist das 5 Uhr?
Yes, a little after 5.
Das ist Abend, no? Nein?
No, sun sets at 8, and we just came from an afternoon walk. And the sun is high, and I don't consider it an early evening yet.
How many people are there with you?
Just the two of us.
Okay. Okay. Well, for me, it's a very brief check-in. I've just been doing legal paperwork. It's a boring day yesterday. In accounting.
Means
Paperwork and
what?
accounting.
Taxes?
No, it's for the rental across the street.
Oh, that.
And soon to be rental here.
You're a landlord.
Boring stuff. Well, if I own a property and I don't want to live there, then I have to do something with it rather than just go cash flow negative.
Yep.
Because I don't want to sell it. I like it. Okay. Anyone else like to check in? I'll take that as a no. Any particular highlights that you guys remember from yesterday?
Well, when I left, you posed the issue of how do we teach children, and I sent you a Neil deGrasse Tyson interview that was particularly appropriate to that topic because
Set
the
in which
story of
medium?
in Slack.
Oh, okay.
And the story of his life, a black child growing up in the Bronx, and overcoming all of the bullshit he had to, and by age 9, falling in love with the cosmos because his parents took him to the museum where he is now a curator. And the first time he saw stars, you don't see stars in New York City. It's too much light, too many buildings. And then he went to visit relatives in Puerto Rico, and suddenly saw the stars in the way nature meant them to be, not in a museum, but as they were created. And he his story is a story that relates to my life story, where my parents fundamentally did not get in my way. If I was interested in model airplanes, we went to the hobby shop and bought model airplanes. And I stunned my father one day when we were at a model shop, and he was going to buy me this diesel engine for my birthday, a model airplane engine for my birthday. And I said, no, I want a wood burning set. And that stunned them. But I did wood burning for a while and then went back to model airplanes. Parents that don't get in the way of their kids are the secret sauce.
You know, Jack, can I riff on that one?
Well, this is your floor, for Christ's sake.
No, I just want to mention something before you continue. I ran across a short video yesterday that said that of all the important habits that parents could exhibit to raise bright children, it was to not answer a question directly.
Yeah, I agree. I once dated a Chinese MD PhD. She was professor at Stanford, a research professor at Stanford. And the reason I stopped dating her was she was telling me of her son who was at UC Berkeley and decided he wanted to go into computer science and linguistics. And she told him no. And I just immediately knew that this had to end. I
That's
could not.
Tiger Mom.
That's it's I yeah it it was just untenable, and so I broke it off with her. Kind of sad because she's a very nice lady and all that, but uh, I liked the idea of dating an MD PhD because I was doing biological research with my AI stuff. But and in fact, her study was on interferons, which is what got me through leukemia. But no, I could not envision living with somebody who thought she knew better than her kid. And we certainly followed that path with our kids. Um, we exposed them to everything. For my son's 5th birthday, I bought him a radio controlled glider kit. And he and the local highway patrolman's son would stand in the living room and build it. And that was just as good as it gets. And then we took it out to a glider field and they got to fly it. And they learned that you don't just grab the control stick and jam it to the right or the left. You do it in little subtle moves. And they learned so much, both of them.
About control theory.
And then of course we put him in Taekwondo um, to really enrich their life in a kind of a discipline that parents don't give them. Um, and But then when he was sitting at his computer playing Mario games, I simply asked him, "Why are you playing somebody else's game?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Why don't you write your own game?" And he asked, "Can I do that?" And that's when I realized that children in general just are not empowered. I said, "Yes, you can." And when I had a big hit in the stock market, I went out and bought him a high-end Macintosh, the older variety. And he promptly found a pirate game design uh, software platform and taught himself 3D modeling. And then I sponsored him to go to the San Francisco. I forget its exact name, but it's a school of arts in San Francisco. And when they had their end of semester summer school um, display, um, all students had to design a TIE fighter that would glide through a canyon. Now here's my son who's been flying radio controlled gliders, who knew the subtleties of how you move the control stick, and his was the only TIE fighter that went through the canyon without banging on the walls. Went through it glass smooth. And that's the way you that's the way you get out of the way of a kid.
So, just to close the loop, what's he doing now?
Well, technically he's an unemployed 3D animator. Um, he got caught in the AI downturn, and so he's caved in and he's teaching himself AI so that he can remain competitive. Now his wife works for a educational game based company, and they've sent her down to they're living in Seattle now, and they've sent her down to Glendale and to be in a training course to learn AI. Now, I don't think that they need a 3D animator. I think they're in a different class of games. But that, by the way, is where they met. She was an administrator, for God's sake, at a game company. And she was the HR person that brought him in, and she then approached him for dates. And 10 years later, she proposed marriage to him. I just it just that's just such a wonderful story. Script was completely upside down.
How are you feeling today, though, Jack?
Um, how I feel seems to correspond to how much hemoglobin I've got. And right now it's on the rise.
Meaning it was low?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it tanks. Look, your kidneys are what 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 governs your hemoglobin. And when you got failed kidneys, you don't have hemoglobin.
yeah.
So they have this new miracle drug that was discovered while I was doing leukemia that fundamentally promotes the growth of red blood cells. It's called erythropoietin. And so it was still in clinical trials. And today, that's what I take, but only as needed. because there's a delicate balance. When your kidneys are making hemoglobin, leave them alone. Don't take this procreate when your kidneys, your hemoglobin is up where it should be. But when it starts to fall, you have to watch it.
Hast du
And
das
when it
Telefon?
falls,
Brauchst du gerade, ja?
Nö, nee, brauche ich jetzt nicht.
the when my hemoglobin falls into the tar pits, I can barely climb the stairs.
In fact, Jack, that's why I asked, because you were speaking when you were telling your story, you were speaking a bit slower than you normally speak.
Um, that's because I'm more in a pensive mood today than a fire 'em upitis mood.
That's how I noticed.
But I do think that my hemoglobin did respond to the procrit.
Okay, cool. So I just want to resonate with your story because I don't, yeah, I've probably told it before. I've told stories before, but it's the one time I tell people that I lost my Asian dad cred. You remember that story, Jack?
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
know,
I've gained
you
it back.
you you don't have it. You probably never did.
But I want to be an Asian dad.
Yeah, you want to be an Asian dad, and some women want to be Asian tiger moms and whatever. And look, from what I can tell, you put your kids in great schools, and you're clearly a highly intelligent guy, technically inclined. So that had to be an inspiration. I don't think you need much more. I learned that my father, I didn't know this for almost all of my life. I learned that my father was actually a right winger. That was when right wing was right wing, not what it is today. And yet, he had two books in the living room. One was Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, and the other was Barry Goldwater's The Conscience of a Conservative. And it's interesting because I didn't read, I actually only read part of Silent Spring, and I wasn't really old enough to get the fullness of its meaning that we were killing our environment. I did not read Barry Goldwater's because it didn't interest me. But then Neil deGrasse Tyson listed it as one of his 10 most important books. Now that's going to cause me to want to read it.
Well, yeah, there was a day where being conservative actually meant that you actually thought through a fairly,
Exactly right.
well-constructed set of thoughts. That is
Yes.
not what it means today.
It's not it's there are a few left, but
Who would you say is
they've
in
been
those camps, in that camp?
well, they've all been thrown out of Congress. They're gone.
Would Rand Paul even come close?
Yes and no. Rand, look, I really enjoyed his father because his father was colorful as hell. Like it or not, I probably would have voted for him. But he has crazy economic
Here's
ideas.
your
Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist, an MD, highly educated. And sometimes I agree with him, and sometimes I just think he's loony bins. I do not think that he's MAGA. I don't put him in that camp. But he's not center right.
He votes with
He's a little
MAGA.
bit he votes with MAGA because it's part of the party line.
That
But
means you're MAGA.
he's well, I actually I'm not so sure that's actually the case, but um I mean, what's that old lady from Maine? She votes with MAGA and then always apologizes, saying, "Boy, I fucked up. That was wrong."
Are you saying Susan Collins? Is that the one?
Yes,
No, she's pure
yes.
MAGA. Look, it's like a rapist saying, sorry, I raped, I fucked up. You're still a rapist.
Well, she held the vote to change the Supreme Court,
Yeah, but then
and
flipped,
she
didn't
made the
she?
wrong vote.
Yeah, she flipped.
And then she said, "I was wrong."
That's that whole Christian mentality of I can do whatever the fuck I want Monday through Saturday, and as long as I confess on Sunday, I'm fine. I'll still go to heaven. That's so
Yep.
fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I don't want her around. I am really rooting for somebody to overturn her.
Thomas Massey?
I don't know. I just learned something this morning. Jeff Bezos is all in for MAGA, but the San Diego Sun Times this morning had this article about Bezos's um, campaign. His PAC is throwing a boatload of money, including his parents' money, at a left winger for San Diego's congressional district.
It could mean anything. It could mean that they want to unseat, the stronger left winger. Who knows?
Well, there is no strong left winger in for that seat. That seat was always given over. I mean, there were some great left wingers that I voted for, but I was always outvoted. Uh, uh, and what happened is the asshole that was holding the seat retired. And he knew that he was doomed because California redistricted, and it was going to force his district to go left wing. And so that's good for me because I'm in that district. And besides, the guy that was holding the seat was a carpetbagger. He didn't even live here. He was a Bay Area jerk. I can remember when I was living in the Bay Area, watching him run for Congress there.
Well, you know who I consider the ultimate carpetbagger, if you meant in a pejorative sense? I think that's the only sense in which it's held.
Yep, yep, yep.
Hillary Clinton. She's the ultimate
Yeah,
carpetbagger.
I tend to agree with you. I just think she fucked up. And also, I never liked her.
She's not a likable person. Her
Well,
ethics
the
itself are
way
questionable.
the way I came to dislike her was deep in the middle of my leukemia battle. Her husband wins presidency, and the first thing he does is send her out on the road to ask Americans what they wanted for medical care. And we have no idea what she actually heard, but we do know what she decided to say. Single payer and doctors who practice fee for service would go to jail. You either work for the government or you don't practice. And that's when not only me but everybody else I knew turned on her, and we took Congress away from Clinton. We literally voted right wing.
Well, look, she had no credibility in that space. She was personally
No,
appointed by Bill. So if we do that on the quote unquote the left, why are we complaining that Republicans get to uh, appoint what's his name, Stephen
Jared.
Miller, or
Yeah,
Jared? That's right, either of those guys,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's family matters. I what was the Shakespearean line about I don't know. I can't remember the line, but it had to do with, basically the whole system is polluted. Neil deGrasse Tyson can quote Shakespearean lines right off the top, but I don't have his brain. But his parents did all the right things. They took him to the Hayden Planetarium and it changed his life.
You know who else did the right
Carl,
thing for Neil?
who?
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan, that's the point. Carl invited him to Columbia
I
when
thought
he
it
was
was
still in high
Cornell.
school. Cornell.
Cornell.
When he was still in high school.
Because
Spent
Neil
a
had
week
written a
with
letter to Carl Sagan.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a great story.
It's an awesome story. Now I can claim that I had similar kinds of experiences. Um, you know that I got to spend 5 glorious years with Douglas Engelbart, and in his wake, I met a whole shitload of other high-powered people, including you. And all I'm saying is, I had a lot of breakthroughs, a lot of breaks. That's what you want your kids to have, is those breaks.
You know what prevents that? This notion of celebrity,
Yep,
as if celebrities are untouchable, they're unapproachable.
yep.
And I still suffer that.
Well, one of the things that I've learned when I was doing wind power, wind energy, I would go to these conferences with 1,000, 1,500 people in the auditorium and show them my slides on wind energy and blah, 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 blah. And I became a celebrity. And I was at Stanford one day, and um, I had written a book. co-authored a book and edited a book on XML topic maps. And I was at Stanford one day, and there was a group from Harvard, I think it was, that was giving a lecture on wind energy. And one of them came up to me and said, aren't you Jack Park? And I said, yeah. And he says, oh my God. He said, you're famous. And that's when I knew this can't be, because I'm not that guy. I'm a fast mover when I do shit, but I am not celebrity material. So I insist that the grand sensecraft vision, even though I'm its spokesperson, is not mine. It has a lineage that goes back before Engelbart to Vannevar Bush and others, in a whole lineage. Do you remember Yuzuru Tanaka? Sammy, did you go away? Well, if you didn't go away, your voice is gone.
Approaching the stairs. Testing, 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 testing. One, two,
Okay.
three. Testing, one, two, three.
Yeah,
Better.
now we hear you.
Okay, sorry. I was downstairs getting coffee while you were telling your story.
It has that effect. Do you remember Yuzuru Tanaka?
Of course. I still regret not having gone to Hokkaido yet.
Yeah, well, you know, he invited me, and they offered to pay not only my way, well, they paid my way, and then Linda bought her own ticket to go along. And um, that was because Dino invited him to our first Knowledge Federation conference, because he had already run a conference on Knowledge
I
Federation,
remember that.
his version.
His Weeble World or Wobble World or whatever it was.
Yeah, Webble World. And and he'd written a book on the Webble World economy. And so he was deep into this stuff. And that's where we first met.
Oh, wait a minute. I
And
think it's too.
everybody else, what?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, most everybody would walk up to him and just shake his hand and say, hi, how are you? And I just bowed and said, Hajime Mashta. And he just popped a Hajime Mashta right back. And from then on, he and I clicked. And what surprised me was he came to every one of the following Dubrovnik events.
Yep.
And at one of them, I asked, this is a long way from home for you. Why do you keep coming? And he says, because you're here. He
That's a
said,
very
we
Japanese
resonate.
thing to say.
Yeah, he says, because we resonate. And that's fundamentally why, when he was retired forcibly by his university, he took up co-chair of the Japanese science group, and they chose as a project to build an open source Watson. And he knew that that's what I was working on. He wouldn't have known that if he hadn't come to Dubrovnik
That's not still
and
going on,
heard.
is it?
No, it 2016 was the very last one. And it was 2015 was when I gave the first Tokyo and Hokkaido talks. 2016, he came back, but he also brought Randy Goebbels with him, who is a professor at University of Alberta, who was also at my Tokyo and Hokkaido talks. And that's because Randy was a consultant to that Japanese science group as well. So he spoke reasonable Japanese and really understood the Japanese culture. For example, we were walking along the street one day and he said, "Take a look at this." And there was somebody's wallet taped to a post box, a mailbox, a big collective mailbox out in front of an apartment complex. He said, "This is the Japanese culture. They don't steal. Somebody dropped their wallet. It didn't get taken. It just got taped to the wall so that they would find it when they went looking." So it was Randy that invited me up to his university to give a talk on what and he wanted me to talk to literature-based discovery. He and I and Yuzuru were going to co-author, and we may yet co-author a paper on literature-based discovery, because that's actually the secret sauce, connecting dots. So it was Yuzuru who resonated with me, and that was that was the major life's reward for everything I've ever done.
Yeah, Yuzuru is special.
He's very special. he, we were sitting in a restaurant getting ready to fly to Hokkaido from Tokyo, and we were each eating a little sandwich or something or other. And he looked at me and he said, "May I ask you where you met Linda?" And I told him we met on an online dating service. It was called Plenty of Fish. And and so I told him the story. And then he just decided to say that his life had been so busy doing his science that he turned to a marriage broker to find him a wife. And you may have met her in Dubrovnik when he brought her.
Yes, she was
Uh,
very silent.
she's there, well, because she doesn't speak a word of English. And you probably also met his daughter, who also doesn't speak a word of English.
Wait, I
But
don't
by
recall his
now,
daughter being there when I was there. She may have only
but
come the first time.
oh, um, okay, fair enough. Um, but eh, I met her when I went over to Yuzuru's house for dinner, and and Yuzuru told me that she was going to do a PhD in ocean chemistry. And I just lit up and I said, That's totally awesome. And she didn't understand why I lit up, so he babbled at her in Japanese, and then she smiled. I said, "That's an exceedingly important." But she doesn't speak English, so I couldn't talk to her. But yeah, the wife was is she's a really nice lady, but she doesn't speak a word of English. She responded to my Hajime Mashita and all of that, but um, uh, nothing beyond that. What saddened me in that event was the two women standing there in the kitchen preparing a meal for a table of men. And they stood in the kitchen while we were eating. They did not join us, and that really saddened me. Your topic of how to raise good children is really the topic the world needs today. Let me tell you a story. I was living in the San Fernando Valley when right after I got married, we bought a house on a half acre. We raised horses in the backyard. And had a lawn in the front, and this kid who this kid came along, and he didn't look to me like he was he was in clean clothing or any of that sort of. He didn't look like he was coming from a place of any kind of wealth of any kind. Came up and he asked me, did I have any work for him? And I said, would you like to mow my lawns? And he said yes. So I paid him $5. I don't remember whether it was weekly or monthly or whatever to mow the lawn. And then one day he came up to me and he said, I see that element moved into our neighborhood. And I said, you have to help me out here. What does that element mean? And he said, black people. Um, I think he was just echoing his father. We have to break that. He never worked for me again, by the way. I just decided no, I'm not going to feed um, you know a, a crazy person. I felt sorry for him because I just had to know he was echoing his father. And guess what? I'm through talking.
Okay, testing, testing. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you. Well,
Okay.
I can.
Were you gone when I was doing all of my diatribes?
No, I think I heard most of it, but what I was trying to figure out was the point was about either subtle or blatant racism. Was that the point?
Yes, it was
Yeah,
just it was that element was his father's way of blatant racism,
yeah.
and as Neil deGrasse Tyson points out, race doesn't exist. It's a human creation.
It
We
exists
made
for
it up.
people who see only shallowness.
Exactly. It exists so we can differentiate ourselves. And that's the wrong attitude. We are the same. We're all stardust. Let's get over it.
Yeah, it's a
Every
very
living
big policy
creature,
difference.
every living creature on this planet is stardust. How can we be different?
Well, because
We are
2% of our DNA is
adaptively
different.
we are adaptively different, and that got into the DNA. Look, people who are equatorial had to deal with 100% sunshine 100% all the time. So they evolved a shitload of melanin. But when those high melanin people moved north towards the essentially the Arctic Circle, high melanin started working against them. So those who survived were those who were throwing away the melanin gene. And so if you go from pure black at the equatorial region to lily white, just white as hell in the northern region. That's not race. That's adaptation to the climate.
Well, it's the same thing as, moving 2 blocks down the street and now saying, "Hey, I ain't one of you anymore."
Well, it's all false. And Engelbart said co-evolve the people and their tools, but the tools are evolving on their own at a furious rate. And I said, somebody forgot the people. And so my game is about the people. As Clinton would have said, it's the people, stupid.
Well, we used to think that the problem was people were not evolving as quickly as technology. The problem was even worse. People are devolving, and they're devolving
They
pretty
are.
quickly.
They are. They are. They're getting more and more entrenched. And that's what has to change.
Okay, so I want to
So,
loop this back if I may.
okay, I'm through.
Okay, I want to loop this back to a key skill that I think we need to teach children. And I'm not unique in this. All I just want to do is bring back focus on it, which is to teach children how to ask why. Because if
Violent
children don't
agreement.
learn how to ask why, bad things
Well,
happen.
so Neil deGrasse Tyson would disagree with that. He points out that classrooms beat it out of them. They are always asking why, incessantly. I mean, my kids and probably your kids asked why when they where do we come from? Why? Blah blah blah. Why? Blah blah blah. Why? Blah. And most parents will say, "Shut the fuck up. I'm not going. I don't have an answer for that." Whereas Neil deGrasse Tyson says that schools pound it out of them.
Of course.
Sit in your seat,
Yes.
shut up, you listen to the lecture, get ready for your test.
Hmm.
Schools are what have destroyed what truly great scientists children actually are.
Okay. Point
It's up to
granted.
the
I
parents.
understand that. But if I'm talking about rebuilding society around a new vision of education and a new vision of teaching, I think bringing back why, allowing why, encouraging why, and not answering directly, but basically leading into exploration and curiosity and double clicking and looking at related subjects and putting things together. That's what we need to refocus on.
And so we are on the same page, without a doubt.
So I want to bring that focus back to education. And I completely agree that schools have pounded this out of kids, which is why I bring it up.
Well, we're in violent agreement. Now, my
And
kids got to go to a middle school and high school that flipped that script. And the high tech high in San Diego flipped the script. And Stanford is offering courses that flip the script. We know that there is a movement, but it's not strong. So
so
we're
I
on the same
admire.
page.
I'm not saying that we're not. I'm saying that we need to bring this focus back to education if we're going to build society around education, which means we have
Yep,
to
yep, yep,
build
yep, yep.
around more critical nucleus,
Yeah,
a redefinition of education, a redefinition of how you support education with surrounding infrastructure. Like,
Which is which is why when I win, and I say this win, I get serious funding for what we're doing. I want you on that team.
appreciate that, Jack.
I told you, I can remember driving in your car with you to go to lunch years ago and saying that I looked forward to the day when we could collaborate on
I
something big.
remember multiple times that you and I both reaffirmed that to each other.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
So on that closing moment, I'm going to say ta-ta and go off to gab with Ward Cunningham and that that really awesome crowd of doers.
Give me 20 seconds on what they're currently focused on.
Oh, it I don't think they seem to be focused heavily on a feature that Word invented called MEC, a
Yeah, I've seen him
FedWiki.
demo it twice now.
Okay, well, he is pushing it in directions that are just unimaginable. And then he's got this MD in the room who is taking it and the graphic capabilities that they added to FedWiki, which allows you to draw a graph. But if you click on a node, it takes you to that wiki's page. It's just brilliant shit. And what he's done is ask Claude to read a story and then build in FedWiki a discourse graph of what the story was about. This is all going on, and that's in that room.
Wait. Have you taken a look at the latest Notebook LM upgrades from Gemini and Google? I think they claim to
Well,
do that.
yeah, they claim to do that, and the only problem is it's fucking proprietary. I don't want to pay Google for anything.
Well, right now it's free.
Yeah, it's free, but it's kind of like what happens when you build a nuclear power plant and you warm the water and the fish all grow up around it, and then you suddenly shut the power plant off. When Google does what Google has always done, which is to take away what they gave,
Yep, they're good at that.
um, they're very good at that. Um, then at that point, so I do not want to get reliant on something that will not last.
Yeah, we're always in that situation with every provider.
Of course we are. I have to say I love what they do with it. I mean, and what I do like is that there's a notebook LLM clone at GitHub. In fact, I think there's several of them now. They do almost exactly the same thing.
One more name before you go. Mila Jovovich. Does that mean anything to you?
Yes. She's a
Okay.
model turned actress.
I think you're both going to be surprised.
Okay.
Jack, do you know?
No.
One of the latest GitHub repos announced in the last 2 weeks has been her and a partner basically solving the context memory problem. And she is actually the committer on that repo. So she's actually been working in this space for
Now
months, if not
is
longer.
this the space called Mem Palace?
Yes, that is exactly right.
Okay. I didn't I that's where I saw the name, and but my I short term I don't connect dots.
Well, you
But I've been
probably didn't see an
following.
old movie that she was in then. Do you recall that she used to
Well,
be in theater? Sorry, cinema?
no.
Have you ever
What
seen The
would
Fifth Element?
no, I actually didn't.
Kayla, you've seen that, right?
Hmm. Yeah, she was
And
one of
I
my
think there was
favorite
some other
models
ones.
turned actor.
Yeah, there was another movie she was in about being stranded on some desert island
Oh,
with
the
her
Blue
brother.
Lagoon.
Yeah, Blue Lagoon. I think there was one there too, right?
Yeah, she did the remake.
So
Yeah.
I've been following Mem Palace on Medium. And kids, I've got to go. Ta-ta.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Later, Jack. Could you guys notice when Jack was telling some of the earlier stories, I did notice it was speaking slower than usual.
No, I didn't notice that. Interesting. I noticed you were interrupting.
Yes, I was bad today. Yeah.
Why do you interrupt, Sam? It just like trips me out because you're the one who brought it up. But yeah, you do
Yeah.
interrupt.
Well, I did notice that because I did think that some of the stories were repetitive, but I've
Yeah.
told Jack before. It's still rude. I agree. I'm glad you call it out. No,
You're not
really.
the only one who interrupts. Like, you're the only one who's appreciative when people call it out.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, I hope he's okay.
Well, it sounds like his oxygen is increasing,
Good.
or his hemoglobin, I mean. But hemoglobin delivers oxygen, so I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
My favorite teacher was my sixth grade teacher, and I could still remember him teaching us about blood. And he had this like chart, or he had all of us had like this construction paper, and we would cut out like circles or plasma or whatever, and he would like walk up and down like the aisles of the desks and repeat like hemoglobin. The way he would repeat it was so fun. He was so fun, and it was cool. He was probably one of my favorite teachers. I learned so much from him. I learned about economy from him too. We all played like a little game. I was somebody who uh, tended sheep, and so I had like wool, and I would sell the wool. He taught us about kind of racism in a way too, where he like put us into two categories, like how many people had brown eyes and how many people have light eyes. And the people with brown eyes, get these certain type of privileges, and then after lunch, he said, you know what, let's flip it. Or he just made something up like, oh, I heard that the people with light eyes now have like, these amazing privileges and they're a lot smarter. And just like the way he did it was just brilliant. At the end of the day, I think everybody started crying because we were like too immature to understand what was going on.
Wait. How old were you in this class?
Sixth grade. And I do remember the people with light eyes. Like I was friends with this gentleman named Scott, or this boy named Scott, who I'm still friends with now. And we got to wear special badges. Like so, he, in his light eye privilege, got to wear this special badge that says he's special because he's light eyed. And he actually took it out. He goes, "I don't believe in this," and he just like ripped it off. And he was like, "I think it's really sad what's happening in class right now." And like we all talked about it.
Awesome
But
guy.
anyways,
Invite him to these conversations.
well, unfortunately, I think he got let go because there was some like sexual accusation or something about him that, yeah. I tried looking him up. I still remember him, Mr. Gearhart. I tried looking it up, and I sent him a message, I think on Facebook, because I thought I spotted him. And I said, "I hope you remember me. I was in one of your classes in this school, and I just wanted to say if you were the person that who I think you are, you have made such a huge impact in my life, and I've never, ever found a teacher like you." Yeah, he dressed up as Dracula. And he goes, "We're going to have a special," he said, "we're going to have a special guest come in and teach you about blood." And then he went outside and he came back in dressed up as Dracula.
I like him
And then
already.
and then, like on top of that, he had us like he taught us about acronyms. I still remember, like I could tell you like all of the countries in Central America because we when he was telling us about acronyms, he had us like all of us as a class come together and do acronyms for all the countries in Central America. So it was "My brother goes home every night catching pigs." And we switched the "my brother," and it was Mr. Burns, who's across the street. And I remember he would open up the door and he'd be like, "Okay, everybody, say the acronym for Central America." And we all shouted, "Mr. Burns go home every night catching pigs." I would swear it was the best experience ever. And so now when I think of Central America, I think exactly of those acronyms, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Costa Rica is in between like El Salvador and Nicaragua. So he was the best teacher ever. I got straight A's in his class, except
Wait,
for
Mr. Burns
class
goes home
courtesy.
every night catching pigs. That's the one.
Uh-huh.
That's very
Mexico,
useful.
Belize.
That's
Yeah.
very useful.
Yeah, right? Oh, and
Let me
then
see if I
like in
can
the
actually, let's see. G would be what? G, what country is G? Guatemala.
uh-huh,
H is Honduras.
uh-huh.
E is Ecuador. N is
El
Nicaragua.
Salvador,
El
right? El
Salvador. Wait,
Salvador.
wait, wait,
Yeah.
wait, wait. Is it
Because
Ecuador somewhere
Ecuador,
down there too?
yeah, but it's at the very tip. Like
Okay, you're talking about Central America.
yes, Central America.
Okay, all right. Nicaragua. C is
It's my favorite country.
all right.
I I
That's
live there.
not Central America. That's South America.
Yeah, it's Central America. South America is like Argentina, um,
Okay, and then
Chile,
Paraguay. Yeah.
Panama.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right. All right.
yeah,
All right. But still very useful. I
yeah.
learned something
Right?
today. Okay, good. I learned something.
Yeah. Oh,
Ah,
one of my favorite teachers of all time, I swear. Oh, and then one last thing about him. The very beginning of the year, this was like so brilliant. The very beginning of the year, he had what was called funny money. And if we did something good, he would give us funny money. And he would tell us, like, you're going to save this at the end of the year because we're going to have a big sale. And then throughout class, like he would accumulate things. Like he had a couple of plants and he would like have us all water his plants, or he would accumulate things for, Christmas or New Year's or whatever. He just like, there's like certain pieces like art. And at the very end of the year, again, brilliant. At the very end of the year, every teacher has to like clean house, right? And so what he did is he took everything out, all of the decorations like that were cool, his plants, he put it all on sale, and we all got to buy it or bid for it using the funny money that we collected throughout the year.
what's this
So
guy's
at the
name
very
again?
Gearhart, last name is what was his first name?
Gearhart?
I think so.
What's
No,
his first name?
oh, I wish I could remember.
What city was this?
This was in Oxnard.
Snart.
Yeah,
I love the guy already.
I know, the best, I swear. Just like and then all the student of the month people, he drove this like um what is it? Like this little small mobile home, you know? Like just a small compact one, big enough to have one or two people sleep in there, and he drove that to work every day. So he knew. And Mr. Gearhart, I don't think he was homeless. I think he just, had that. But I remember if you were student of the month, he would take you to McDonald's, and we were all so excited because we got to, you know, be in his little mobile home and go to
Wow.
McDonald's. We were like, wow, this is so cool. Oh,
You know what? It's sad right now. If he did that today, probably some parent would complain.
uh-huh.
Ay, ay, ay.
Wow, I learned so much from that guy.
Now,
There's like
see,
stories of him.
how many such teachers can you remember in all your years of schooling that made such an impact?
Only a handful. I know one of my teachers in high school. It's funny because she's my Facebook friend, and I call her Miss. In high school, she was Miss Fontana, but now she's Miss something else, and everybody loved her. She was an English teacher. She actually was the one who submitted my work um, to some national something, and I got invited to Washington D.C. as a result.
Wow.
But I couldn't come up with $2,000 or whatever, and my parents were like, "Don't ask anybody for money," because Miss Fontana had encouraged that I fundraise, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she goes, "Ask your family and friends, and ask your parents to like, ask their coworkers." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And my parents were like, "No, we don't do that." I mean, imagine I was invited to the fucking White House, okay? You know,
Mhm.
um, and my parents wouldn't pay $2,000 for me to go there.
But see, I,
But
I, I, I understand that.
as a poor Asian guy, I know.
Exactly. It's very Asian to say don't ask for money,
Uh-huh.
right? Because you
Yep.
lose face when you ask for money.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
It's too bad too, because I'm sure now it would have been a different story. Like now, I totally ask for money. Well, that's part of my job. But when it comes to my kid, I blast everybody. I don't give a shit. I ask you. I ask everybody. Like I don't care. I'm like here, help me pay for my kid, please. And it's so nice because you do get to see the best of people.
But it's surprising to me that you even have a handful of teachers. I don't even know if I have a handful of teachers that have made such an impact on my life.
Yeah, my French teacher did too. She was very animated.
What grade was that?
See, she was my French teacher in ninth, 10th, and 11th grade.
Wow, 3 straight years.
Yeah, yeah. She was just animated. And I think I got a B in the class. There's still elements that were really boring to me.
Mm.
But very animated, very French. She um she would invite us to I remember there's this Vietnamese guys because the Vietnamese people, they also speak French, or a part of them do too.
Yes.
Um, we went to this Vietnamese guy's house. Or no, we went to this Vietnamese with this guy, and I have a picture actually of that. We went to the only French restaurant in Ojai, and this guy came with us, and we all ordered in French, so that was a good experience. And we did that every year. We went to her house every year for like a French party.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember she got mad because I wrote uh, "La classe c'est une ménagerie," is the class is a zoo
Hmm. Hmm.
because they were like people interrupting and shit. She got all offended. She goes, "Who wrote that? Who wrote that?" I didn't say anything. I didn't write it. Nobody paid attention to me because I was so invisible in high school. I was so quiet. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we're boring Heiner. I don't even know if he's on.
No, I
I've been
think this
looking.
is very central to the theme of how do we get kids to really enjoy learning. And I'm working my way back to the central thesis, but it's good to see what you experienced, what I experienced. Like the reason I asked why you had even a handful is I can't think of more than 3 teachers that have had that impact on me. And those 3 teachers were all at the same high school.
It's usually
That
the
was a great
ones
high
that were
school.
so playful. The ones that were playful and the ones that spoke about something really interesting. But then that's like a 50-50, right? Yesterday I was when I was listening to one of the mediums who is Native American, she was telling her story, and she was describing the way she teaches. So, you know, she says like so she first of all, she said that she likes lectures. She can listen to lectures all day. And in my head, I was like, wow, that's like the first person I've heard say that they can listen to lectures all day long. Like lectures bore the shit out of me, unless it's something that I'm very, very interested in. I am not interested in every lecture. And she also said the way you speak to somebody makes an impact. She was saying some people are okay with telling it how it is, and she said she gets that, but she says that to get through to people, it's much more sustainable if you speak to them in a kind, inquisitive manner, as opposed to straightforward. That's that. Anyways, it was really interesting. The first person ever that I've heard that they like lectures in general.
Who is this person?
Her name is Danielle something.
And how do you know her?
I don't know her. She's one of the mediums that I follow. She's Native
Oh,
American
okay.
from Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, she and I actually have very, very similar paths. We were in, she was in a nonprofit in mental health. She was always interested in spirituality and mediumship. She doesn't really subscribe to the whole religious thing. She's very drawn, of course, to her culture and other native cultures. I'm very drawn to the Polynesian culture. Um, she talks about like land and stewardship and how it's all connected. And I strongly believe in that too. And she said that the the most successful mediums have lived a good life. She said lived a rich life full of different experiences. And she said those type of people are typically the ones who can connect with spirit a lot faster because of the lessons they've learned along the way. And so I feel very validated in my quest to connect with spirit. I'm like, hey, that's me.
Can I ask about her? Has she ever mentioned to you or written about having a near-death experience?
I haven't heard that yet.
I'm very interested in near-death experiences, and I'm interested in people who have experiences outside the normal senses and outside the normal consciousness.
You should just look it up.
Sure,
People,
but I was just curious whether this person that you know has had that.
the one thing about people who are spiritually inclined in the non-traditional sense is they're like kind of underground. They're not something academic. And I know that if you come from a place of academics, it's a really difficult to trust the source, right? But that's where you just kind of let your intuition guide you and trust you. And that means connect with somebody that it's a lot easier for you to connect with. Um, and so for me, it's typically Native American or Indigenous women. For everybody else, it's just different because there's a lot of people with a lot of experiences like that. You know, I've seen a lot of I don't know if it's the algorithm of this, but I've seen now they're making a lot of connections between science and spirituality.
I like that.
Me too. I feel like we can finally have some common ground.
You know, when I was still in school as a freshman or sophomore, one of the books I came across was a book called The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. And that was the earliest mention that I can remember of anybody crossing those two domains.
Mm.
I don't know of anything that's earlier than that. I'm sure people have talked about it, thought about it, spoken about it, but that was the first book I encountered on that subject or on a related subject.
You would love this book that I read. It's called Buddha's Brain.
Buddhas.
Buddha's Brain. You would love it. You could probably read it faster than I did. It connects neuroscience with the philosophies of Buddha.
Rick Hansen.
It's beautiful.
$33. I can get it on Audible.
There you go. I just love the lessons too.
Let's see. How long is it? 8 hours and 45 minutes. Oh, okay. Oh, I have Audible credits, audiobook credits. Okay, based on what you just said, I am now purchasing Buddha's Brain on Audible.
Did you hear me munching on potato chips?
A little bit.
Okay, sorry.
It's not a big deal. No, no, no. It's very, very soft, very faint. It's only every once in a while.
I'm eating
Well, you
chili
didn't
cheese
seem to notice,
Fritos.
but did you notice yesterday when I ate a whole tube of Oreos?
No. Wow. Did you dip them in milk?
Ooh, I did not.
Mm-hmm.
One
Gotta
of the
do
things I
that.
don't do anymore is I don't actually consume much milk anymore. I do consume cream in my coffee, but not milk.
Because it makes you fart.
Well, that and casein's not supposed to be very good for me.
Mm.
The milk protein. Oh, Heiner,
Uh-oh.
Jovo. I just saw Heiner's text. Well, I
Bored.
still have a residual interest in connecting the stories among subjects for each student or for each grade level or for each entry into education. This is why I think navigating someone through knowledge is a really interesting problem or possibility. It's a lot more fascinating to me than the actual knowledge itself.
Mm.
I think that's underappreciated.
Yeah. I do feel bad as a parent that I'm kind of pushing Max into academics, whether he likes it or not, because he said his goal is to go to a UC. And that experience to me is more valuable than, you know,
Well, there's some
well,
amount of that that you got to do, I think, as a parent. You got to be able to. Hang on a second. There's a call coming in. Okay, I think I got rid of the call. Sorry. I was saying some of that is necessary. I don't think parents should be completely hands off. And that's something I didn't quite get into with Jack before he left. I understand Jack's point about letting kids explore the way they want to, but there are certain elements of education that are just necessary. So I don't know if that's what you were trying to say or trying not to say, but like to participate in society, you got to learn how to read, at least in some language. You got to learn how to write, at least,
yeah,
to a reasonable level. You got to be able to understand basic math, arithmetic, logic. I would argue
yes,
there's a lot more than that, but just to start from, you got to say, that's necessary. And if you want to participate in society, you can't be incompetent in those things.
yeah, absolutely.
Above and beyond that, yes, let the kid explore however they want, but there's got to be a core that's just taken for granted that you just got to know this. And I hope that's not controversial. What is controversial is where that line gets drawn in every subject. That's what might be controversial.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I'm
how
glad
much
you agree,
logic do you
though.
think somebody needs?
Right. Sorry. The door
How
just
much
slammed closed.
is that the bathroom door again?
No. It's nice and breezy today, but it's a the sun's out. It's not gray like yesterday. Yesterday was very gray.
I remember the sun is bright again today here.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a nice 3 day streak of sun now. It's like, am I in the
Yay.
Pacific Northwest?
Oh. So I'm sorry, you were saying about logic.
I'm saying that I would probably draw the line a little bit higher than most people because I expect more out of regular people. I expect them to have some common sense. I expect them to be able to do, basic arithmetic. I expect them to understand, basic logic. I expect them to understand basic, evidence, integration. I expect them to understand when certain statements are in conflict. I expect them to have a curiosity to try and settle that conflict or be able to hold both in a neutral way until they get more information. Certain things I say are necessary, and I think all these things are necessary. I think you need a basic understanding of science. I think you need a basic understanding of chemistry, of cosmology, of physics, of biology. But all these subjects get introduced, but there's no story behind them to the regular student, to the average student.
Yeah.
And some of these things go way, way, way into really esoteric subjects. And my favorite one, I always keep saying it, it's so stupid, I keep bringing it up. Why the bleep do I still have the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria? That is useless information to me. It's useless
Yeah.
information to every person on this planet. And yet it's in textbooks. And we have all this crap about, how these heroes, Columbus was a hero, he discovered the new world. Yeah, well, we're finding out way more about him and the way he was cruel,
Mm-hmm.
sadistic, racist, you know,
Well, see,
and
that's the shift right there. And it's unfortunately we're kind of slow to discover all of that, right? Because we're all shifting.
we've been bamboozled for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going back to science and the stories, what reminds me of those types of stories are indigenous stories. They may not
Yes,
say it outright. They may not say, like, this is, use science terminologies, but there's always a reason why. And it's too bad that religion has made that impossible to bring up those indigenous studies because it's the schools are so concerned about deities
they're not really
when
concerned about deities. They're concerned about everybody else's deities.
yeah, well, you know tomato tomato.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know it's too bad.
Thank you for bringing up the indigenous people stories because I think those are great starting points.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
I think we can
important.
expand on those. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really important too. You can actually bring up indigenous stories per region. Like here in the United States, the natives have such rich history about their indigenous here, that they can pull up their own stories based on the region
Hmm.
and revive that, the best parts of those cultures.
Yep. And I don't hear any of them contradicting science because, oh, that goes against my indigenous story. I don't hear
Yeah,
any of that.
no, yeah, there's no lust for power. Well, I'm pretty sure individuals have lust for power, but I do feel like you know, in certain societies, there was this like lust for power and taking over things. And that's why.
Of
You know,
course.
the colonizers did what they did. But you know, so I'll tie this back to something personal because it's easier for me to explain it this way. Um, I was very curious as to why I get so nervous when I'm interviewing. And you know, I can dance in front of hundreds of thousands of people doing a solo, no problem. I can actually speak with a donor one on one, no problem. I can make a speech in front of hundreds of people, no problem. I can even speak, you know, in front of hundreds of people without an actual script. I may not be as smooth as when I do have a script, but um, I can do all of those things. Why do I get nervous when it comes to interviewing? Because it's really difficult for me to explain. It's just a job that I do. Like I just do it. I can't explain what a fucking move managements are or this and that is. It's like something you just do. It's something that you've become. So how do I explain who I've become? Not only that, being put under scrutiny for something I already know is very uncomfortable. It's kind of like it is not, it's an unnatural dialogue. And so when it comes to indigenous teachings and, you know, other cultures who may have, you know, introduced science and thought that that was more superior. And not saying it's not, okay? But it's the delivery, right? It's that connection. Like, I get it. I get why a lot of indigenous people were confused. Like, well, you know, we're not questioning the science, but this is the way it's always been. We can't articulate why it's been that way, unless, of course, we introduce you to our culture, which you find heathenous. You know, and that was their explanation of things. So, anyways, that's just the connection I make with the indigenous. To me, indigenous teachings are so much easier to digest than science. But that's just how my brain is. Over.
Can you give me an example?
Ooh. uh, yeah, there's so many. Which one are my
Okay,
favorite?
that
Well,
one. That one. The one that just flashed through your head. Which is that one?
um, Pele and the volcanoes.
Give me the story. Give me the two versions. The indigenous version and the scientific version.
No idea what the scientific version is, just because I don't study volcanoes. But I do. When I think of Pele in the volcanoes, I think of like, you know, the violence of birth. Um, and there's stories, there's several stories around that, right? But you know, in the islands, um, it's like birth is very violent when it comes to like volcanic activity because that's what actually makes the island bigger, and it comes from that eruption, that anger, that place of violence. Scientifically, I mean, I can't articulate that. That's why I'm not really good at it.
Oh wait, did I say that that was equivalent to birth? birth?
Yeah,
Do you think of birth
like a
as
woman birthing.
yeah,
It's very hard and violent, and it takes everything from inside of you and it just pushes out. Did you see your wife giving birth?
every time?
Yeah. And how like you have to catch the baby. Everything just gushes out.
Hmm.
And how painful it is because as a woman, it comes deep within. It's the most extraordinary thing that I've ever experienced is my body actually pushing itself. There is no will in the mind. You know, obviously the will in your mind is to actually push, but at some point your body just takes over and it pushes from itself and it just gets everything all inside and pushes. And the reason why I know that, Damien was actually not a C-section, but he was a, you know, of course I got the drugs.
Epidural?
Epidural.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that was the best. So I had to push. because my body just was like, woo, was under, some type of narcotic. But was not. Max was fully natural. I mean, nothing. They couldn't give me an epidural. They gave me a little bit
That's
of
enough, right?
morphine, but that didn't help. Yeah. So at one point, he was coming, and there was no like OB to help me, and they were telling me that I need to like hold it in until the doctor came, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. Like my body physically could not, and all I could do was just like push my knees together. So that's kind of one of the teachings of Pele. I can't tell you what. It's been a long time. There's also teachings of like certain indigenous cultures about how like um there's three types of vegetables that were given from like the sky mother, and it's really interesting to see how all of those vegetables grow. I think it's beans, corn, and something else. And there's a scientific way to where they all grow in harmony and they work with each other. It's like the corn shoots up, and the bean kind of, the beanstalk grows like around it or alongside it to be able to reach the sun. And then there's another plant that grows underneath. And that's another like beautiful lesson from Native Americans. It's also there's another one where you tie in color, where like why are these colors so like why are humans drawn to these type of colors? And bees, they've discovered bees are drawn to the same type of color, and they actually were able to pinpoint like the scientific version of that too, which is fascinating to me. But that came with a full like some type of Native American folklore. See, introducing these stories and these folklores and the why really gets you interested in the science of it as your brain starts to mature and
Yes.
retain some of this information.
Yes.
And I know that's probably what you were trying to say.
I think whatever's drawing someone's interest is always a good way to start. If
Yeah.
you can keep that interest and then expand that interest.
And there's
And it could be different.
variations of it too.
Yep, yep, yep.
I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say the same thing, right? Because it's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So what grabs you from a story standpoint about birth, I would never have drawn that parallel to birth, right? Just
Yeah.
because I'm a guy, I would never have that experience.
That's why Pele is a goddess.
Hmm.
And gods and goddesses are important alike together. Even the ones that don't have a gender assigned to them, they are just as equally important. Hi. How are you feeling? Okay, there's soup. I still want you to. Oh my God. I forgot to put the jalapeno in the soup. Oh well. I like to put a little bit of kick in my soup. Okay. See, I belong in. The more I talk to you, the more I realize I belong more in culture and education.
Okay. As opposed to,
No, I'm just thinking about my job. Like, social justice is great. I'm not saying, I just feel like, I just belong more there. My passion is starting to like go there. And I feel like it's it's full circle, I started in embracing culture and embracing those ideas and stuff, and then I'm finally branching off to, education. I've always been really interested in academics, but not really in academia myself. So I just feel like my passion can help contribute and carry lots of good stuff towards culture and education. And it can also be tied to a lot of things: youth, family, science. It's really important to just like stoke a person's passion, yeah, from children to adults.
Once we talk about it, it just seems so apparent, so common sense, so transparent. Why is it that we have so de-emphasized it? And then that's when I realized, oh, geez, well, it's because education has been intentionally suppressed for decades.
Well, nobody can really think outside of the box, or not. I'm not nobody, but only a few people, unfortunately, can think outside of the box. I have these moments, these ranty moments, like I'm having now, with people of like high level people. I have some of these ranty moments of like with educators. I had a ranty moment with an educator during the pandemic and had suggested that we utilize this time to be able to reach out to other cultures from around the world. Since you, like, I even suggested, since you have the ability now to reach out, like the school district's not listening, nobody knows what the fuck to do. So do it now. Like, wouldn't that be cool? I had even pitched it as something fun. And the woman, her eyes, like, it was as if I was speaking another language. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Same with people like who are executives and CEOs and like people from higher education, like they cannot fathom. I even talked to my school principal and said, or my kid's school principal, not mine. And I don't remember what I ranted on, and I said what I said. They just either shut me down. I know the man shut me down. The woman like could not comprehend what the fuck I was talking about, and to me, I was like, "What? But you're the principal. You're the superintendent. You're the CEO, and it doesn't matter." Which is sad, right? Because you kind of want people like at the top to think outside of the box. There are not too many people who can think outside of the box, and unfortunately, they are in positions of power. Most of them. You need equal amounts of people who think outside of the box in these positions.
Do you think it's because people who are in those boxes are more concerned just about staying in that box?
But I think they're just groomed that way. They're
Like,
at the
oh, if
top.
I do
Yeah, I
something
think you're
different,
right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's like they're groomed that way. They're at the top. They feel like they owe it to society to follow. And it's, again, if like that, it's another thing. You become kind of a martyr if you think differently. People either follow you or they hate you. I mean, look at I'm the black sheep of my family. They're finally coming around. And the funny thing is, who is coming around? The youth. The old folks still think I'm like, they can't believe. They think I'm a bimbo.
Well, it just reminds me that for change to happen, it usually takes a generation or two.
Yeah.
And some people won't give it up. They just have to die. That's why, from a civilization standpoint and a biological standpoint, death works. Unfortunately, for those of us who don't want to die, but death works because it makes way for the new.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you want to be spiritual about that, it's a transition. And, no, but like spirituality doesn't judge that transition.
See, that's something I'm still not quite ready to completely accept because transition implies to something, and I don't know that there is a something.
Mm.
I'm not saying there isn't, I just don't know it, but I'm curious. When you were talking about the teachers that made an impact in your life, I could
Uh-huh.
name three. And one of the three is Daniel Morris. Does that name sound familiar to you? Have I told you this story?
No, tell me.
He was my chemistry teacher. And it turns out he was an Episcopalian minister. And he had a
What?
great sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose him as my high school advisor. And it was great. Because of him, I really enjoyed chemistry. I did every single lab plus extra. Broke things, burned things, got hurt, got cut, laughed it all off. He was such a fun teacher. So then after I went to college, about 2 years in, maybe a year and a half or 2 years in, I said, this is too boring. This is too easy. I wrote him an actual letter from college. It was a handwritten letter. And I said, I'm curious what happens beyond this life. Because it's just, too boring, too easy, blah, 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 you know? And so he wrote back a very short letter saying, come on up here, let's go sailing. So I took him seriously about a month or two. Whenever I had the opportunity, I went up, came back up to Seattle, and he took me sailing. And it was just the two of us. He had a 22 or 25, I don't know how big his boat was, but it was a real sailboat. We went out into the sound and we talked about enlightenment, we talked about Satori, we talked about experience, we talked about possibilities for beyond. But I think he wanted, well, he was concerned. And I think he was curious about whether I was so interested in what's after life that I might actually go there sooner rather than later. I think he showed real concern.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And he expressed it in such a way that, wasn't so over the top. It was just, hey, let's, get together and let's talk. So after he found out that it was much more about curiosity and philosophy, that, he knew I wasn't suicidal, but then we really got to talking about very interesting subjects. And he told me about being an Episcopalian minister and what God was and, what he thought of the afterlife if there was one, even though he was a, brilliant chemistry teacher. And that is one of my most memorable days I can remember in my life. And he is one of the most memorable teachers I've had in my life. He is a truly good guy.
It sounds like it.
He was always laughing. He always had that twinkle in his eye.
I'm wondering the commonality that you and I are talking about among all of these teachers is there was a lot of laughter
Yes,
and a lot of fun
yes.
and playfulness, if you will.
Hmm.
It kind of reminds me of comedians.
I love
And
comedians.
the brilliance of comedians.
Yes.
And it also makes me think that, you know, that positivity is sustainable and it helps you grow.
Yes. Yeah. That's the only way to live life.
Because, and here's a connection to what the mediums say. The mediums and the people who are intertwined with spirit worlds, they all say, or the ones that I know, say that the spirit world does not judge, but they do recognize there's high frequencies and low frequencies. And typically the higher frequencies are connected to positive experiences, or connected to experiences such as laughter and joy and, something that's a lot more sustainable. The lower frequencies are the ones that, you know, um, gossip and just like things that are not so fruitful, like war and stuff. And so it really depends on what you focus on, the experiences you focus on.
So here's a real question I would ask you and whomever actually is whom you're describing. Is it sufficient to live that way? Or is there a certain amount of sense making and understanding you need to have about the state of the world?
Sense making understanding you have of what? The what of the world?
The state of the world.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Another thing that I say is this world here, it's kind of like what Jack said. There's no thing such as a teacher. We're all learning. Um, a lot of people who are very spiritual believe that you're like your body is basically your prison, and the world is, you're here on Earth to learn, and that's it. Hopefully that answers your question.
It's a step. It's worth discussing way, way more. I think it's a good question. I think I
Mm-hmm.
like that question because one answer could be no, you don't need to understand the state of the world. Just be laughing, just be joyful, just be optimistic, just, spread love. And I hear that from a lot of people. But I think that the flip side is if you don't understand the state of the world and the misery it's causing, then is that enough? Is it okay to be ignorant about all that misery?
I don't think so. I
Yeah, I
That
don't
would
think
be
so
my
either.
answer.
I don't think so either.
I,
And I think
Hence
being
the learning
informed,
factor.
sorry,
Mm. Go ahead. You weren't done.
I think being informed about that misery actually lets us direct some of that action, positivity, joy, love,
Mm-hmm.
goodness.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And I think what you might have also pointed out to me a while ago is I might have been focusing too much on understanding the state of the world and the misery and the cruelty and negativity, etc., and not yet speaking enough about being the love, the connection, the care, the compassion, the positivity, the optimist.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm trying to balance that.
Yep. I figured.
Because even I was coming to see these sessions and saying, yeah, I find myself ranting too much. So I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah, it was making me depressed, dude. I love listening to you. I do. You have like a again, you have a way with words. You have a way of explaining something. You don't use very many filler words like I do, like a but and an and. A lot of your articulation is very to the point, succinct. It's like your cadence is great. Like you're somebody that most people like to listen to, at least, in the space that I've observed. But so when you're talking about things like Trump and politics and stuff, and rape and all this crap, it really gets me down. Especially when it's a lot, when it's like often. And this is just an observation, and it really is just me. And I think it's because I like listening to you. So I had to point that out, and I'm glad because
Yeah.
I can
Well,
listen to the ranty things, but not all the time.
okay. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Well, I think that in part is why I've kind of made this little shift to what can we do? And that's that we can improve education. We can improve the stories that we're telling. We can stitch together all these different subject areas so that they make sense, no matter where you are in the education journey. I
Yeah.
think that is an area of focus I really like because it's different than all the negative ranting and all the, state of the world being cruel and evil, etc. It's actually saying this is where we need to go. This is how we need to build.
Yes.
And I think that's very fruitful for many, many discussions. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah. It isn't.
I'm going to write that down again as something to follow up on later. You realize it's the top of the hour now? Hey, by the way, have you remembered this guy's first name, Gearhart, yet?
I almost want to say Gary, but I don't know if it's because we were talking about acronyms. um, this is a typical white guy name.
It's good enough for now. We'll do some more later. But
Yeah, I'll think about it.
whoever it is, it'd be nice to find out whether he was actually recognized for his skill and gift in teaching.
You know.
They can't go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just remember
Well,
he was it was funny too because you know in sixth grade we as students we're always like, oh, you're gonna have so and so, and I remember it was either him or Mr. Burns. I remember, and I wanted Mr. Burns because he was so cool. He was this tall blonde guy with bushy blonde hair and a blonde mustache, and the way he talked was like, hey man. And I thought like, oh, I want Mr. Burns, and people were like, oh, you got Mr. Gearhart, and I was so sad. Um, but people who had had him were like, no, he's the best, trust me. And he to me looked scary, but he didn't put up with a bunch of shit. He also yelled too. And it was frightening when he yelled. So he did not put up with like crap. Um, and so I was afraid, and then I discovered that it was probably the best, like God gave me the best sixth grade teacher ever. I was just really sad when I heard that he was fired because of some, sexual accusation in the school. And I don't know if that's true or not, because we were too young to discover any details.
that's unfortunate.
Mm, anyhow, well, it is the top of the hour. I hope we
Yeah, it
got some
is.
really good conversation.
Yes, I'm gonna go and finalize some of these contract terms that I have to meet the guy at 1 o'clock over.
Nice. Okay. Well, good luck to you. Tell me
Okay,
how it
have a
goes,
good day.
and
We'll
I'll let
check
you know if I find
on,
Mr. Gearhart.
yeah, it'd be good. Find out how he was remembered by his community and by his school.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
Kayla, thank you. Heiner, thank you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.